What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with the one and done preview for the AT&T Byron Nelson. Before we jump into that, let's look back at last week's Wells Fargo Championship. And here were the ownership rankings for the Gups Corner one and done. Phil Mickelson leads the way with 331 picks. That's a pretty significant number, quite honestly. Followed up by Rickie Fowler at 288, Tony Finau at 285, and rounding out the top five, we've got Paul Casey at 193 and Jason Day at 190. We did have two of those guys in our two lineups in the top five most popular. They were Jason Day and Paul Casey, the fourth and fifth most popular golfers. I'm happy to report that Phil Mickelson, the number one most owned golfer last week at the Wells Fargo Championship, missed the cut. So I'm showing you the leaderboard right now. Phil misses the cut, gets a goose egg for 331 competitors. Tony Finau was also a top three most popular golfer, finished T60, which is basically like taking a goose egg anyway. I think he made 15, 20 grand, something like that. Rickie Fowler, the second most popular golfer, does finish in a T4, which I think is about 300,000. And then we came right there in the middle of the pack. So Paul Casey in our season-long lineup, also a T4, tying Rickie Fowler. And then Jason Day, a T24 after, really played really well for 3 days. It was the Saturday 74 that knocked Jason Day really out of contention here. So what we banked was as follows. Our week by week lineup, which is progressively getting worse, falling from the middle of the pack to the bottom third now, earned 67,000 from Jason Day, and our season long lineup, which continues to get better and better, another six-figure score. So that's 3 of the last 4 weeks. You can see we've racked up, what is that? 900,000 or so over the course of the last 3 weeks, $1 million over the course of the last 5. With Paul Casey tallying $311,000 for us. That lineup is now, firmly in the top about, I want to say 30% of this thing. Really happy with our season long process. I'm going to probably create a lot more content around the thought process that we've gone with on that season long, where we literally have input these players well before. This was done back in January. So it's been a lot of fun following that. So for this week, the AT&T Byron Nelson, kind of a weird tournament. The field is super weak. There's only a handful of guys at the top that we, consider studs, I suppose. Brooks Koepka, Henrik Stenson, Hideki Matsuyama, Jordan Spieth, like those are the headliners here. The next tier of guys is pretty plentiful. I talk about it a lot in the DFS video. There's Keith Mitchell, Mark Leishman is in there. Ryan Moore is certainly viable in terms of one and done. But if we look at the tool, we look at the one and done tool, it favors Jordan Spieth pretty significantly. He's in a tier of his own. Obviously, we're using a lot of long-term data here and average payouts, so Spieth gets a big bump even though his recent form has been absolutely terrible. Then you get Hideki at 106,000, who's kind of in just a second tier by himself. So Jordan Spieth, tier by himself. Hideki, tier by himself. And then the rest of the guys, right? Then there's another tier where everyone else kind of falls in, and that's led by Henrik Stenson, Brooks Koepka, Mark Leishman. What's interesting here as I flip over to the cheat sheet is Hideki. Okay, so I'll just kind of spoil this for you. Hideki is going to be the guy that I use in my weekly pick. And there's a few reasons why. Strokes gained tee to green, he absolutely laps the field here. So if I sort by tee to green, there's only going to be one guy higher. It's Scotty Scheffler, but that's only 4 rounds. Hideki's sample size is like 28 rounds, and he's almost twice as good as anybody else in the field. Yes, I understand that he cannot putt, but that is a volatile stat. We'll see if he can turn it around this week. Also helps that he is the second favorite in this field, only behind Brooks Koepka, so great odds to actually win this event. But really the icing on top of the cake here is a bit of game theory and a bit of thoughtfulness here. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we'll go through this. And the idea is that Hideki has been used quite a bit by everybody already. He's like he's one of these really good golfers who is not necessarily good enough to be plugged into one of your 4 majors, or your 5 majors if you count the players, right? Like, he's not on that tier, but he's in the fields that he plays, he is very, very elite, like waste management. So you always get a ton of owners who have already taken Hideki by this point. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. So Hideki was 33 used him at the Sony. 43 used him at the Farmers Insurance. What's that, 73? Here's the big number. 880 used him at the Waste Management. That is, off the top of my head, I believe that is the highest number we've seen from anyone at any point this year. And it's because of that elite course history that Hideki had. This was the absolute place to fire him up, was the Phoenix Open. So we're 4 weeks into the season and already 950 owners have used him. We keep kind of going down here. 276 at the Genesis. So let's do my math here. What was it? 950 and 276. So that's 11, 12, 25 or so. So 1225. You go to the WGC, it's 162. So 1225 and 162 are basically at 1400. He didn't play the Honda. Another 150 at the Arnold Palmer. So what's that? 1650, 1550. I forget where I'm at. 70 at the Players. Didn't play the Valspar. 15 at the Match Play. What else? 76 at the Masters and 177 at the Wells Fargo Championship. So literally, I don't know what the count was. Almost 2,000 people, between 1,500 and 2,000 of these owners have already used Hideki. So there's only a third of the field that is left to even potentially use him. And so I'm thinking that even if everyone uses him, it's not going to come up to his waste management number. I imagine a lot of the ownership is going to go towards guys like Stenson, guys like Brooks Koepka, guys like Leishman, who have great course history here. There will be some Spieth guys. There'll be plenty of Keith Mitchell. There'll be plenty of Ryan Moore. I just think that this will get spread out this week. So I'm going to take Hideki and just try to steal one from everybody here and see if I can get a win. Finished 16th last year, playing really well tee to green. If he just putts average for the week, he's going to win the golf tournament, I suspect. But so I'll plug him for my weekly pick. And then my season-long pick is probably going to be pretty chalky. It's Mark Leishman. So Leishman is a guy that we plugged in before the season started, and I can see why the model loved him, right? His two things. His tournament history is incredible. But remember, this is the second year at Trinity Forest, but even his course history is really great with a second place finish last year. So no surprise to see Leishman there in a weak field. This is a really good time to get him. Again, the model continues to impress me the longer we go in the season, how smart it was. So we've got Leishman rolling out in our weekly. We've got Hideki rolling out. I'm sorry, Leishman rolling out in our season long, Hideki rolling out in our weekly. Let me know who you're playing, and have you already used Hideki yet? Am I crazy here, or is just like the entire field absolutely used him? Tweet me, it's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Good luck.